So you've figured out you have a foundation repair project coming up. Well, what should you expect after you've taken that step? You've got to know what to prepare for, right? Well, most foundation work will probably be done either in the basement or a crawl space or on the outside. So when you are preparing, you have to prepare that it's in fact a construction project. It's not just a little bit of paint or a little bit of wallpaper. It's a construction project. So there's going to be probably cutting of concrete, which is going to cause dust. And most professional companies will tape a room off and so forth. But if you have a respiratory issue, you might want to be sure that they have HEPA vacuums to be able to suck the dust up and send it out a window or so forth. And you also need to prepare that there's probably going to be some drywall removal, and you'll have to patch or replace that. So you ought to prepare for removing items away from the sides of the basement floor, because that's where the work's going to occur, and have them put up a plastic curtain to keep the rest of the house so it doesn't get dust in it. But you ought to prepare that you're going to need a commercial cleaning afterwards. That's just what it's going to be like. And if you have belongings that are really important to you, well, make sure that you put plastic over those tightly so that they don't get covered in dust, because these folks are probably not cleaning contractors. They're not going to leave it perfect. So that's a couple of things to be concerned about in the basement. So another thing you want to be concerned about is, or be prepared for, I should say, is it's going to be noisy. It's construction. There's likely maybe jackhammers that are going to be used, pistons, excavators, mostly smaller excavators, not huge commercial pieces of equipment, but those are going to be used and they do make noise. So if you are working from home, you ought to prepare for going upstairs, or maybe taking those few days and moving your office to somewhere else. Or if the baby needs a nap, you have to make special preparations for that too. So that's if work's being done in the basement. And you ought to expect that there's going to be some restoration for that too, which will be on the customer. That's usually not being handled by a repair contractor. So just before we leave the basement project, make sure that the crew, whoever it's going to be, walks through the things that are going to be done. Where are they going to come in and out of? Are they going to go in and out the front door? Are they going to go bring materials in and out of a window well? How many days is it going to take? What are their normal working hours? Is it going to disrupt your dinner? All of those kinds of things. Okay, so I think that pretty much covers the issues for basement work. So let's move on to crawl spaces. So crawl spaces can be worse actually than work in the basement, because if the crawl space entry is in your home, the crew has to come and go somewhere to get into that crawl space. There aren't any window wells, so their access is going to likely be either through the house where the crawl space entry is, or from the backyard if the crawl space is outside. But if you're water issues in the crawl space, or they're doing foundation work in the crawl space, there's likely going to be mud, dirt, certainly, that'll be coming out of the crawl space opening. If they're replacing beams, they're going to be regrading down there. There's probably a bunch of debris. Most crawl spaces have debris. So if you're expecting them to remove the debris and so forth, you ought to have that conversation with the crew to make sure that they know that's what they're supposed to be doing, if in fact that's a part of the scope of work that they are working on. Okay, so we've talked about crawl spaces and basements. Now let's talk about the outside. I think of all the things that I hear of, this is probably where most people, where their expectations do not match what's the crew or the company is doing. So make sure that before the crew leaves on their final day, that you have a walkthrough and see the disruption that has been taking place. Were they supposed to restore it? How does it look? Did you get the results you wanted? And if they're lifting, you want proof that the house was lifted, because you may not have been there during the day. I always recommend to a homeowner that they be there the day that a house is lifted, if there's substantial lift, so that they can see whether it was satisfactory or not. So let's go back to just a few of those questions. You want to know for your expectations. Are they going to be working there from 9 to 5? Do they start at 7? Will they work into the evening? How many days is it going to take? Don't let the crew leave before you've done that walkthrough. If they've disturbed landscaping, are you expected to fix it? Are they expected to fix it? What are they supposed to do with plantings? Are things in the way? Can they pull up on the driveway? Some of those types of things are important questions to ask. And it's better to ask more questions than less. And it's better to say, well, my wife will take care of it, or my husband will take care of it. Don't do that, because usually that's a surprise to that person by the end of the day, on the final day. So there's one other thing, and that is there may be some demolition of a room or some fixtures or a shower or something like that, or cabinets and that sort of thing. So make sure that you have a very clear discussion with the company that's doing the work for those particular things. I'm sure there's some other things to be able to put up here that are questions to ask on preparation. But I think if you get through most of this, and you take these suggestions, that it will benefit you greatly to a very much more satisfactory conclusion than kind of leaving these things to chance. And I would not expect, just here at the end here, I would not expect the crew to ask or answer all these questions without you asking them. They're not going to offer answers to questions that you might have unless you ask the question. So that's why I said it's better to ask more questions than less, and it'll get you a long ways towards a successful project.